Good evening, everyone. You're welcome to the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinoxe television. In our top stories, human rights defenders in Cameroon have raised alarm on the poor human rights situation in the country, a country where human rights abuses are on the rise on a daily basis. In its monthly reports, that's the reports published in the month of June, human rights, the Stand Up for Cameroon Human Rights Working Group, notes that human rights abuses and violations are rising in different domains, including rape, torture, property destruction, and killings in the northwest, southwest, far north region, as well as the east regions of the country. We also talk about the extraordinary General Assembly of the Cameroon Football Association of Federation that finally takes place in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, after tension between the institution and the Ministry of Sports and Physical Education, as well as the divisional officer for Yaoundé 2 subdivision. The extraordinary General Assembly finally holds after a statement, a go-ahead statement made by FIFA and CAF during the extraordinary General Assembly of FECAFOOT. The President, Seydou Bombo Njoya, urged the delegates to work towards development of the country's football, as well as giving FECAFOOT a new look. We as well talk about the death toll in South Africa that has risen to 45 following the detention of ex-president Jacob Zuma. 22 deaths were announced today. Good evening. Once again, you're welcome to the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinoxe television. In our top stories, just like I indicated, human rights defenders in Cameroon are raising alarm over the poor human rights situation in the country. They note that the crisis in the northwest, southwest regions, as well as in the far north region of the country, continues to implement or continues to record series of rights abuses as well as violations in its monthly reports. That's in the June report. The Stand Up for Cameroon Human Rights Working Group notes that the rights violations and abuses are recorded in different forms, ranging from property destruction, killings, rape, as well as torture in several regions of the country, notably in the northwest and southwest regions. Details in this report with Babila Jonathan.
Cameroonians are being maltreated. Cameroonians' rights are being violated by our government.
The civil society decries continuous violation of human rights in Cameroon. In the month of June 2021 alone, tens of people died in insecurity in the crisis-stricken northwest, southwest, and far north regions.
We have 66 people who have died. We still have violence taking place. We have killings in the northwest and in the southwest, as well as in the far north. We have the Ambas who are using each day passing more sophisticated weapons like the rocket launchers which we heard about.
In the southwest, one of the two English-speaking regions in crisis for close to 5 years, 5 government officials have been missing for several weeks after one of the 6 abducted was killed. To the human rights defenders of Stand Up for Cameroon, the silence of governments on the issue speaks volumes of its irresponsibility and inhumane character.
You can't send people to the field, you can't appoint people and you inform them and tell them, no, go, you will be secured, and they have been abducted. One has been killed, and up to today we are getting no information that the one who was buried, it was not publicly known. It was just done silently. Those who are still in the hands of the Amber guys, nothing is said about them. It shows that our government is not responsible. They don't take into consideration, they don't implement what they have said, because they keep encouraging those who've run away from their post, saying they should go back. There is actually security, which is not true.
Illegal arrest, detention, abduction, kidnapping, and forceful eviction of occupants of state-owned and or disputed lands are other human rights violations condemned by the Stand Up for Cameroon Human Rights Working Group.
We still have political prisoners who are still in prison. There is no light. Nobody is saying anything. Even the 4 members of Stand Up for Cameroon, even one who is sick and has been chained on his bed at the La Quintini hospital. Those who have been evicted, they are along the streets. They don't have places to stay. They have children. You have those who are sick. There have been no dispositions to accommodate this person, which is unacceptable.
Concerning the violation of Cameroonians' right to health, the right defenders are asking government to explain the alleged embezzlement of billions of francs CFA of COVID-19 funds, and that those found guilty should be punished according to the laws of the land.
Despite efforts being made by the government of Cameroon to reinforce security in the far north region of the country, where the population suffer from constant Boko Haram hostilities, the population of that region are still imploring the government officials to reinforce security in order to tackle the Boko Haram terrorists. They say they have continuously recorded atrocities being committed by these armed men from neighboring country Nigeria and now living in deplorable conditions. Immaculate Fogwe reports.
Ongoing war in the northern regions, orchestrated by the Boko Haram terrorist sect, continues to cause untold suffering and hardship. Inhabitants of the affected localities have incurred enormous material and human losses, a situation that has paralyzed the region socially and economically.
Les veuves, c'est des femmes qui ont perdu leur mari, soit.
Many of these women lost their husbands due to the conflict. Others saw their houses burnt. So, some of them had to run away from their localities and they are now internally displaced. Some children are even unable to go to school because of lack of finance.
Et qui vivent vraiment dans la précarité. Se prendre en charge elles-mêmes, elles n'arrivent pas. À côté, il y a encore les enfants.
In order to remedy some of the plights of the population, a project has been launched by the Cameroonian government and its partners. Hundreds of people in the Mario Savard division have just received material and financial aid. These war victims received sewing machines, agricultural inputs, grinding mills and other equipment that will help bring some of them back on their feet following several months of hardship. I am very happy today. Since the conflict started, I have been jobless. Thanks to this association, I was trained. I am now a tailor. Even though the gifts offered are insufficient, given that a locality like that of Makulaye, which has 8,000 inhabitants, was offered a grinding mill, they, however, express gratitude. Before, we used to cover several kilometers in order to grind millet and maize. This project is a source of comfort, but with 8,000 inhabitants, it will be difficult for it to serve the entire population. So we are pleading on the government to do more. The population are pleading on the Cameroonian government to reinforce security in the area.
We talk about rising insecurity still, this time around in a locality known as Loe, that is in Manjo subdivision, the Mongo division of the Little Wild region. The population say a group of 4 individuals attacked the locality. They took away their properties and killed a young man whose corpse was discovered. The next day, they are pleading on local administrative authorities to beef up security in that locality. Details in this report compiled by Mala Glory.
The rise of insecurity in Lohe village in Manjo of the Mongo division leaves the population in distress. A group of 4 young men attacked the inhabitants of Lohe this weekend, giving the whole village a sleepless night. And recently, a young man was found dead on the streets after being tortured by unknown individuals. It is in the morning that my children saw the corpse and reported it to me. The inhabitants complained that the rise of insecurity is as a result of the absence of a police station. The population of Lohe are frustrated. We are really discouraged. We call on the state to at least establish a police station in this area because the thieves even get into our houses while we are in bed. The insecurity is really increasing by the day. So we plead on the government, remember us. The suspected bandits regularly storm the homes of the inhabitants and make away with their belongings. Business persons and commercial bike riders are often attacked and their bikes are seized. We had an attack last night and the culprits have been arrested. We often face such situations. In fact, we are used to this as they carry out this act almost every month. One of our friends was arrested and his bike was seized. They broke into our houses and stores. They attacked us on the streets. The assistant mayor's bike was stolen as well. Like elsewhere, the inhabitants have been sending distress calls to the administration over the same problem for several years.
3 persons suspected to have kidnapped a teenager in Yaoundé, central region of the country, have been arrested and presented to the public by security elements. The 3 suspects were arrested in Douala, where they made a video demanding ransom from the teenager's family. Simanjukan Gabriel completes that story.
They were 3 nabbed by police officers in Yaoundé for the kidnap of a 23-year-old Henriette on June 26, 2021. Their arrest by elements of the judicial police was possible after an in-depth investigation.
We opened deep investigations and furthermore the exploitation of the demand requisition that will be addressed to the Antique National Agency for Telecommunication and Information permit us to localize the victim phone in Douala, Makepe, and after intensive research, earlier in the morning at around 3 p.m. At Makepe neighborhood, the 29th of June, our special team intervened and arrested all the 3 suspects. The 23-year-old victim was found in the room in a devastated state.
Owing to the fact that the victim was in a poor state when security officers arrested the 3, she was rushed to the police hospital for checkup.
When they came back to Yaoundé, while the suspect was conducted in our unit, the victim was taken to the police hospital for a deep checkup. So the 3 suspects, aged 28, 21 and 20 years respectively, were arrested.
Apart from kidnapping the teenager, the 3 who were arrested had also asked for a ransom from the family of little Henriette. Scissors, syringe, knife and a little quantity of marijuana were seized by security forces. The youths are cautioned.
To our young compatriots, we can advise them to avoid exhibiting all their life on social media, because cyber criminality is a reality in our society nowadays. We are recommending to our all population that if you are in your neighborhood, if you see some young people doing nothing, conducting dangerous criminal activities, you should report immediately to the nearest police station. You could call the green police number 1500 that is functioning 24/7.
The 3 suspects will be taken to court on Wednesday.
In Bavoussam, West region of Cameroon, it is a macabre discovery. The lifeless body of a man known as Serge in his 40s. He was discovered dead under unclear circumstances by the population. Gendarmerie elements have opened investigation to determine cause of his death. Details with Charles Ekome.
A young man in his 40s by name Serge was found dead at the Bamenging neighborhood in the Bafoussam 1 subdivision, West region.
Hey, Malé, que j'ai bu, maman. Yeah,
Little did his wife Rachel know that this was the last time she will be seeing her beloved husband. I met him home yesterday with the wife of my younger brother. I later left them because I was busy with other chores away from home. Afterwards, I was called and told that my husband is not waking up since morning. I got scared, and on my way to the house, I got another call which confirmed that he was dead for real. According to testimonies from neighbors, Serge had a little malaise in the morning. In the absence of his wife, he sent his children and younger brother to go buy medications in order to relieve him from pain. My elder brother got up this morning and went to the toilet to ease himself, and that's when he said he felt pains on the head and equally felt pains on his joints. We immediately sent his children and one of our brothers to go get medications from a nearby pharmacy, but unfortunately he died without ever having the opportunity to take the medications. At the moment, the reason and cause of Serge's death remains unknown, as gendarmerie officials descended to the scene and are currently conducting investigations to elucidate his sudden death. Serge leaves behind a young widow and children. Sadly, his last child, who is barely a few months old, will never know paternal love.
A once extinct village in Limbewan subdivision, southwest region of Cameroon, is known to have been revived by local administrative authorities following the designation of a new chief in the person of Mokaka John. He has been urged to work towards reuniting the people as well as fostering development of this extinct village that has so far been revived. Davison Maimo reports.
We are not here to install a chief, we are here to revive that village. At the head of that village must be a chief. He has to start from there.
The divisional officer of Limbe 1 subdivision, Acha Gibet Kweti, speaking during a gathering bringing together sons and daughters of Mokota to revive the once extinct village located at the periphery southeast of Limbe 1 subdivision along the banks of the Ombe River.
In the colonial times, we had several villages within the surface area now called Limbe 1 subdivision. And one of those villages which was affected, that village is called Mokota village.
Sources say the gathering has been postponed so many times since it had to deal with a consultative talk and eventual designation of a third-class chief.
The administration does not make select chiefs, no. The chiefs will come from the king.
8 kingmakers out of 10 families that makes up the Mokota village all accepted Mokake John as their new chief.
This village has been out for quite a long time. Now the administration and the nearby chiefs have done their best to see that Mokota village comes back as it was in the years behind.
The divisional officer says reviving the village shall provide an opportunity for the people to have their identity.
Without their roots, without the pride that goes with going back to one's village. The sons and daughters of Mokuta who now find themselves scattered around the country to enable their return to their village.
This produced joy and happiness to the villagers, who call on the government to assist in the development of the village.
We pray that government should assist us to create roads and other amenities, hospitals, schools, so that the village can grow.
We are told the village before the colonial period played a major role in harboring slaves who succeeded to escape from the hands of their persecutors at Bimbia. It should be noted, hundreds of Mokota villagers are scattered throughout Fako division and are expected to go back home and start rebuilding the lost and found village of Mokota.
And now in sports, both members of the Cameroon Football Federation, FECAFOOT, this Tuesday met in an extraordinary General Assembly in Yaoundé to adopt new text ahead of elections within the body, despite a tussle between the institution and the Ministry of Sports and Physical Education. The meeting today held following a statements consigned by FIFA and CAF, giving the go-ahead to FECAFOOT to proceed with the General Assembly because the process was rightfully done amidst a tussle between the institution and the Ministry of Sports and Physical Education. The Minister of Sports and Physical Education, Professor Narcis Mwelekombi, had earlier instructed an end to the process leading to today's meeting on the basis that it is in violation of the country's sports laws, FECAFOOT statutes, and a ruling from the Court of Arbitration that stated that it is the General Assembly from 2009 and not that of 2012 that should be the institution to prepare the new text before backsliding on Monday following FIFA and CAF statements. FECAFOOT had insisted on holding the meeting, indicating that the entire process was done in respect of FIFA and CAF rules. Tensions heightened after a decision by the divisional officer of Yaoundé 2, Madi Mahamad, prohibiting the holding. Following FIFA and CAF statements, the administrator overturned the decision banning the elective General Assembly. This allowed delegates of FECAFOOT to meet this Tuesday to adopt the new text of the Cameroon Football Federation, which will then pave the way for elections within the country's football governing body. During the extraordinary General Assembly, FECAFOOT's president Seydou Mbombo Njoya stressed to the delegates the need to implant a status that will permit the best organization and functioning of FECAFOOT, a digestive electoral code, a transparent disciplinary code, an appropriate ethical code, and a transparent finance regulations. Delegates, he says, must work towards giving birth to a new FECAFOOT, more dynamic and modernized, with text that will guarantee development of the country's football in harmony and serenity, void of conflicts. He also assures that Cameroon's football shall regain its place or status as FIFA and CAF have eyes tilted towards FECAFOOT. And on a brief note, out of the country, at least 45 persons are now known to have died from the violence and looting that has plagued South Africa for several days now. This follows the announcement of 22 more deaths this Tuesday morning by the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal province. The death toll in the province where the violence began on Friday is said to have risen to 26. Reports say 6 people had died in the Johannesburg metropolitan area, as confirmed by President Cyril Ramaphosa Monday evening. The army was called in on Monday to contain the violence in South Africa on the 4th day of violence initially triggered by the imprisonment of former President Jacob Zuma. Up next, Talking Points. Good evening once again. You welcome to Talking Points. We having as guest Ndiwum Emmanuel. He is a teacher as well as civil society actor. Good evening, Ndiwum Emmanuel.
Good evening, Mr. Aze, and thanks for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to be on your platform.
It's always a pleasure as well to have you on the platform.
Indeed.
So how was your day?
No, the day was fine. Despite the fact that rain is punctuated almost every activity, but it's good. It's showers of blessings.
Okay, we dive straight into serious business. We spoke about the monthly reports, the reports published by Stand Up for Cameroon Human Rights Working Group in the month of June. They are highlighting several rights violations and abuses committed in the two English-speaking regions of the country, the far north, the east, as well as other areas, that's in other regions of the country. What's your opinions regarding that publication of their human rights report?
Well, Mr. Aze, I think their report is now new, and their report should not take people by surprise. You know, Cameroon is one of the countries that have the bluest report card when it comes to human rights violation. And
why blue? Why not red?
No, I mean blue. That if they were writing exams to pass in order of who can successfully violate the rights of its citizens,
okay,
Cameroon will take first.
Okay.
Their report card will be blue. Right. If I put red, it means that they are respecting it. But then, since they are having a pass mark in human rights violation, we do not even need the human rights group to keep informing us all the time, because they inform us and they are like adding more salt to injury, because they are reminding us of what we already know. You know, we are in a situation where every living thing, anything that breathes in Cameroon, suffers from rights violation. It should not only even be limited to only human beings. Even animals in Cameroon, even though when it comes to an area where the government can benefit from the animals, they prefer to respect the animal rights than the human rights. So the rights group is doing a good job, but then it is not enough, because I think Cameroonians have come of age. It was not supposed to be a thing of one group. Cameroonians were supposed to have now discovered that collective intelligence without the use of arms can take them out from the hands of a dictator, because we are in a dictatorial regime, and that one is not something that we should debate about. So I think,
according to you?
No, not just according to me. According to Cameroonians who are still patriots, goodwill Cameroonians, those who still like Cameroon will tell you that as a only people who are fake, who do not like Cameroon, who do not put Cameroon first, who put their interests first, will say otherwise. But for those who still think Cameroon should be put first before any other thing, they wouldn't say otherwise. So human rights violation in Cameroon is a reality, and Cameroon is having a very good report card. If not on the first three, then it should be at the top of the violations. We don't need to be citing cases. Recently, I was watching your television. I saw a militant of a political party chant to his sick bed, and it reminded me of an Anglophone detainee who was chained to a sick bed.
Not
and
just
those people
about two of them or three.
No, every life matters. Look, Mr. Aze.
But today we give the impression, the way authorities are giving the impression, is like human lives do not matter in the country.
Yes, in Cameroon context, the life of a common man and the life of an opposition man in Cameroon do not matter. The life of those who matter in Cameroon are the lives of the high criminals who are placed in ministries in Yaoundé. You know, in Cameroon has some particularities that other countries do not have. Cameroon happens to be one of the countries where thieves, bigger thieves, are celebrated. But those who commit a minor crime are not cautioned the way it ought to have been, but they are treated as such. Because when you tell me that just 2-3 people must have been seen chained to their sick bed, yes, but we know of the cases of people who have disappeared till date and we don't know their whereabouts. I'm talking now in the context of the crisis, the war in the northwest and southwest region. Is that not human rights abuse?
It is. It includes some of the points raised by Stand Up for Cameroon.
Yes, I am adding my voice to that of Stand Up for Cameroon, and I'm asking other Cameroonians that look, don't only leave this denunciation into the hands of Stand Up for Cameroon. Everybody, if all Cameroonians could take my advice, Mr. Azi, they would take a particular day that every morning they ghost the whole of Cameroon to denounce human rights violation. Cameroonians need to take steps. If they keep lying on their laurels, they will be all crushed. And before we know, the little voices that are now sounding, when they will all be enveloped, who will sound the voice again? Then, which Cameroon are we trying to build?
You're talking about ghosting streets and so on to denounce human rights abuses and violations by staying in their homes. How will the authorities that be know that they are protesting against the gross rights violations and abuses? Why not take to the street peacefully to call for end to human rights violations and abuses?
Going to the street peacefully would have been the best option. But you know that...
Why is it a bad option?
No, it's a bad option because those who pretend to be ruling Cameroon have painted it to look bad. If you
form of repression?
Yes, the kind of impression that they have, repression that they have. You know that going to the street, you have only one option. It is either you are being tear gassed or you meet with a live bullet. And you know that people fear for their lives. That is where I think the majority of Cameroonians is still lacking. In other countries, people give in their lives to serve a nation. That is one element of patriotism which is lacking in Cameroonians, especially in the other 8 French regions of Cameroon. Come to think of it, the war in Northwest and Southwest, if Cameroon was one and indivisible, because the word one and indivisible is the national anthem of the CBDM, the one and indivisibility of Cameroon. If it was truly one and indivisible, the other 8 regions of Cameroon, they decide this evening, Mr. Azi, to rise up tomorrow. This war will come to an end, and other ills will also come to an end. It is because the other regions are living as though life is very normal.
Don't you think the other way, that if all the 10 regions they rise up, there will rather be chaos in the country?
No. Before you have peace, you must have chaos. We all know that to have a chicken,
abuses and violations should be gross.
The egg must be cracked. If Cameroonians are comfortable with the rights violations, then let them seal their lips and be quiet. They should not rise up when it happens. It is their duty to rise up, protect their country. I often hear the officials talk about protecting the territorial integrity. We even have some in the government promoted because they said if Northwest and Southwest was raised like Sodom and Gomorrah, like God did, that Mr. Biya has been so kind to Northwest and Southwest. Otherwise, the Constitution gives him the right to erase these 2 regions to protect the integrity of Cameroon. No, the integrity of a country is for the people, not for an individual. When it becomes the integrity of an individual, then there is something wrong with that nation. And that is what is happening in Cameroon. So something is wrong with Cameroon. Very big wrong.
Let me, you earlier talk about the fact that these human rights defenders in Cameroon keep publishing reports on right violations and abuses, that it is not enough. What more do they need to do?
Mr. Azi, most people only hear about some of these human rights groups on platforms like this, on television. They need massive sensitization and a clear-cut map of actions to be taken by the people. Because just words are not enough. And when the people are not sensitized, educated on a particular thing, they are left to think that there is no way out. Of which, remember, I earlier applauded the action, but I want that they should go beyond talking, sensitize the population massively.
What should be the various measures to be used?
We have schools, we have churches, we have meetings, we have markets. We are in a global world. It takes nothing to just come up with a forum where you get some intellectuals, people who are patriots, and then they disseminate the information to others, and it goes across. That's sensitization. Some of these people, they sit in their offices, they call, they get information, they publish. They don't go to the field to factor in this information into the minds and the brains of the people on the field. Okay. Yes.
Well, before we go out of the news, I first of all want also to talk about, on Sunday, the head of state, Paul Biya, left the country to Europe for a private visit with the wife, First Lady Chantal Biya, and is coming after 2 years of staying in the country without embarking on a private visit. How did you actually receive this news of another private visit in Europe, though the country has not been specified?
Yes, it is good that every human being needs to take air at times. Every human being needs to take air. Staying on the same spot all along becomes boring. But my problem is, you cannot be a president for the people. You are leaving your country with a lot of problems that are plaguing your country, and your people do not know your destination, Mr. Azi. It is terrible. That defines and of course comforts the position of those who have been saying that Mr. Biya is not the one having control over Cameroon.
Okay.
Because as a father of the house, before you leave the house in the morning, it is but normal that the family needs to know where the family hate is getting to, so that they can pray for the family hate, for his going out and for his coming back. If not, should something happen to the family hate out of the home, what will the assistant family hate, which is the wife? Because in this case, I take Cameroona as the wife, and I take the couple out as the husband of the nation. And then what will you say? What feedback will you give? It is also good that
there's always an elder brother.
Before I give you the microphone, it should be noted that
okay,
Mr. Biya's stay in Cameroon for 2 years was not his liking. It is because a certain organization called BAS, Brigade Anti-Sardina, had frequently promised him hell. So he was not staying in Cameroon because he liked it. He has been confined in Cameroon by circumstances beyond certain control. So we only hope that.
So whether he was afraid of the threats from the members of the BAS?
Well,
is that what you're trying to say?
I don't know whether he was afraid, but we have seen the humiliation that had been given to him in the past. Maybe he was running away from this humiliation. Let's just hope that whether the destination in which he's going to is Jupiter, Mercury, or Venus, let him come back safely. But like I've said, We were talking about scholars and intellectuals one day. I think Mr. Bia is one of the scholars in this nation. He should use his intellectual knowledge to know that age gives us energy to perform certain functions, and age takes away energy from us to perform certain functions. It is time he gets to rest.
Yes, before we go out, tell us how his absence in the country is going to affect activities, is going to affect the socio-political crisis.
No, Mr. Bia's
briefly, please.
Mr. Bia's absence in the country is affecting nothing, because his presence in the country affects nothing. Do you feel Mr. Bia any longer? I, as a youth, 36 years of age, I will not lie to you, I've never felt the presence of Mr. Bia. In other countries, you see their presidents moving around the country. When was the last time you heard that Mr. Bia met a tour in his country? And that is why his ministers have the guts to embezzle, steal. When road constructions are given to them, they embezzle the money because they know that the captain is sleeping. The coach draws the line up, but he does not stand by the field to control his players how to play. And that is how the players end up kicking all the balls, offsides, wrong penalties, wrong throw-ins, and of course it's because the coach has drawn the lineup and he has disappeared. So Bia's outing, whether he's in the country or out of the country, most people do not feel his presence. They don't feel any impact. So nothing will touch the economic, social, political scene of the country.
So you say Njiwum Emmanuel, but most Cameroonians feel the presence of the head of state, Paul Biya, following his decrees appointing some persons in key positions, and the family happy, Cameroonians happy, and the close relatives. That I must say. Well, Njiwum Emmanuel, thanks so much for coming.
It's always a pleasure.
And it always be a pleasure.
In Equinoxe, above images, we render account.
Exactly. That was Njiwum Emmanuel. He is a teacher and a civil society actor. That's it for this edition of the 6 p.m. Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television. Thanks so much for watching. Join us tomorrow, God willing. Have a nice evening.